on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with a few initial thoughts about what we just sat down and watched, which was NXT's Great American Bash. This was a fun show. I have to preface this because I'm the NXT guy. No, we are not back at TakeOver levels yet. Who knows if we ever will be. So when I say it was a good show, I mean it was a good show. I had fun. It was what I expect from this iteration of NXT. Slightly smaller building, or at least that's what it felt like. The downplayed set, as opposed to like how big and bombastic all the presentation of Raw and SmackDown are. This feels like a toned down version of that, which is okay. It's the smaller brand and all that kind of thing. They had the stars and stripes integrated into the entranceway because it's the Great American Bash. Now, if you want to know what I think about that and the people that still seem to have a problem with the fact that there was some Americana in the Great American Bash, go check out what I said in the preview. I got a couple good rants out in the preview. Did I not? Not going to spend very much time on the kickoff, the Metaphor versus Valentina Feroz and Ulyssa Leon and Brandon Fraser and Dragon Lee. There we go, names all off the top of my head. It was exactly what I said it was going to be in the preview. It was a women's tag team match and a men's tag team match happening at the same time, if that makes sense. And as much as I'm a fan of Noam Dar, this really was a showcase for Dragon Lee and Nathan Fraser, which I have no problem with. It was really goofy. If you've been following the story about the Heritage Cup and how there's now 2 Heritage Cups, it was kind of goofy to see both of the Heritage Cups out there. Babyfaces get the win. Not really much to write home about. It was a kickoff. Now, we started off the show proper with the voiceover, with the initial video package on the history of the Great American Bash. And of course, because of the ties to not only NXT but the Great American Bash, it focused heavily on Dusty Rhodes, which unfortunately meant I had to listen to more Cody Rhodes talking on my television. But other than the fact that I'm just sick of Cody Rhodes in general, it wasn't a bad intro. It was heartfelt. It was appropriate to the... I mean, they were in Texas as well. To the fact that it was NXT, to the fact that it was the Great American Bash, to the fact that it was in Texas. It was appropriate. I can't slight them for that. I mean, Charlotte Flair did one for an NXT show a little while ago, and I don't remember what the context was, but I remember thinking that made sense at the time as well, so I can't fault them for that. I can't fault Cody Rhodes for being involved in this. What I can fault is why I roll my eyes so much. This is because I hear so much of Cody Rhodes just talking nonsense that when he showed up on my TV screen here, it was like, oh good, Cody Rhodes is here to talk more nonsense. Coming after that was, again, one of the more predictable matches of the night. Tag team title match. It was Gallus Boys on top versus the Family. Really, really nice touch if you've been following the Tony D being in jail thing and him just getting let out like a week or so ago because Stax won a wrestling match, because that's the wrestling world we live in. They both had orange trimmed gear on to pay tribute to Tony D's prison jumpsuit, etc. Pretty simple story. Simple's not always bad. Gallus has the numbers advantage because Joe Coffey is on the outside. He tries to get in a bunch of times, couple cheap shots here and there, a couple of chirps when nobody's looking. Even tries to get out the Billy Club at one point and get that involved in the match, but when he tries to get himself involved actually in the match, he gets met by Tony D and the crowbar, and people hate Gallus so much that the quote-unquote babyface is pulling out a crowbar to get rid of him to set up the, I don't know what their finisher is called. Tony D and Stax hit this, like, inverted double pancake thing, and they get the tag team titles, which is awesome. I think Tony D and Stax, in this weird NXT context, are definitely one of the more over things on the show. It is one of those ones, I spoke a lot in the preview about a lot of my predictions being based on who do I think is going to come up to the main roster next. Well, this guy has to win because I think this guy's going up, or I hope this guy wins because I hope this guy is coming up. The Tony D and Stax thing is not something that's going to work on the main roster. I hate to say it, but that means they could have longevity and they could have, like, a spot for life if they decide to stay in NXT. So that's no bad thing, and they are the tag team champions. Now, In the early going, this was a trio. It was Stacks and Two Dimes, whose real name I can't remember, is over in AEW now. I mean, he was having matches on Dark. There's no more Dark, so I don't know what he's doing now. You gotta think, if this was still a trio, either this would have been a trios match, or Tony D would have let his lackeys get the tag team titles and maybe gone towards the North American Championship, but these are not the times that we live in. Really cool thing, really over in the building, really happy. Reception for it on social media is really good, obviously. Like I say, a combination of two things. A lot of people like to dump on Gallus, which I don't really understand. See my preview with the marshmallow in the egg carton analogy if you want to know what I think of Gallus. But on the other side of the coin, Tony D and Stacks are over. So the guys that are over beat the guys that are not over. You can't get much more basic wrestling than that. And speaking of people that are over, Roxanne Perez beat Blair Davenport in the Weapons Wild match. Now, what I will say about this, I like both people involved in that. I've seen a little bit more about Blair Davenport now than I had when I did the preview. Like both of them, and it's a very weird thing to say because this is sold as being a hardcore match. I'm not gonna lie, the parts of this match that were just match were way better than the parts that were like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be doing a gimmick. The match is good, the brawl not so much. Davenport yelling at Booker T on commentary because Booker T's proud papa, trainer, etc. to Roxy. I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry about that if you're wearing headphones. Roxanne Perez's family is also at ringside, which was good. And then they lingered, and then it became a little bit melodramatic and a little too focused on that, which is fine. It's always going to be really contrived when you're in a specific place, like a place with a specific wrestling history like Texas, and you're going to get the quote-unquote Texas weapons. Now, these two people want to beat the hell out of each other, so of course they want to get weapons. But it breaks the kayfabe to think, okay, I've got to get a bunch of weapons together to beat up this person, but also I'm in Texas, so I better make sure one of those weapons is a bull rope and a cowbell and a what do you call it, where they burn the cows, the branding iron and all that kind of thing. So that sort of took it out a little bit. And like I say, by comparison to when it was just two wrestlers wrestling, every time they went for a big weapon spot, it was very much a moving the chess pieces around the board, okay, what spot are we setting up next type of thing, which I can't imagine what putting a match like this is like, so I don't want to sound like I'm putting these two ladies down. I'm not. But just it just became a comparison. It became a match of two haps. What I do like, in amongst all the weapons play, is Roxanne Perez went for the Pop Rocks twice, and Blair Davenport found ways to counter it both times. One time she just blocked it and held her in midair, which I thought was really cool. The other time she almost turned it into sort of a widow's peak, hangman over the ropes type of thing. But we set up a table on the outside. We do a table. Roxanne does a table spot on Blair Davenport in front of her mother, in front of her little sister, who up until this point had been very worried about her big sister, so there was a little bit of catharsis to that. Back into the ring, there had been a pile of chairs set up earlier that neither superstar had used. Pop Rocks on the chairs, Roxanne Perez gets the win. It's all good. Roxanne Perez is a star. I don't know why they put her in NXT, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know who Roxy was before she came to NXT. I know that she had one match. She had one match in Impact against Deonna Purrazzo on an episode of Impact to drop the ROH title to her so that she could drop the ROH title to Mercedes Martinez, who wrestled on Collision this week. So go check out my Collision review as well. So the one time I did see her, it was her as the ROH champion defending against somebody in Impact on Impact. So very out of context, but I mean, at the same time, it's very hard to have a bad match with Deonna Purrazzo. I mean, even Naomi managed to have a good match with Deonna Purrazzo, although Deonna Purrazzo then got rolled over by the political steamroller. We don't need to talk about it, it's fine. But even the little bit that we see of Roxanne Perez in NXT and what NXT is, I can say she's one of those ones. She should have gone the AJ Styles route. She should have been the exception. She should have been one that went right to the main roster. Now, what did I say? in my preview, I said I wanted a single match on this card to be the best match of the night because of how stupid people have been about it ahead of time. Baron Corbin, Gable Steveson went to a no contest. Sounds like a bummer, right? Really not. Baron Corbin's got the new entrance, the Burn the Ships entrance, which I think is really cool. The music is good. I will say, the theme for this show was annoying. WWE has been really, really good recently, and up to and including SummerSlam next weekend, where they're using Born to Be Wild, of all things. The pay-per-view theme for this show was from a band I've never heard of before, and it sort of sounded like pop music mixed with generic YouTube copy-free music, so that was really annoying. So when Baron Corbin came out with this new entrance, and he's got a little bit of a new look to him, not very many gimmicks to it whatsoever, other than a really weird vest that he wore to the ring. Really, really cool, right from the get-go. And obviously Gable Steveson is the one that we're pushing. This is the one that WWE is telling you, hey, this is the star. This is the guy you got to pay attention to. He's kind of, sort of, maybe just a little bit like Kurt Angle, except he's not. Right from the get-go, Let's Go Corbin chants in the crowd. And I had to rewind it a little bit and play it again to make sure I was hearing the right thing. Steveson is very much mimicking his in-ring style after basically, he's a larger Kurt Angle. Corbin controls most of the match by keeping it from being a grappling match to being more of a brawl, being more of a power game, or whatever. They brawl to a countout. Steveson gets booed. The crowd chants bullshit, and the crowd goes wild for Baron Corbin in this brawl after the fact. They both chuck some referees around, and the crowd chants, let them fight, as we move on quickly on to the next thing, as they continue brawling. Corbin was over as shit, which leads me to believe if you just let Baron Corbin be Baron Corbin, he'd be cool. Stop trying to make him stuff. Like when he was introduced in NXT, and he was the lone wolf, whatever. That was kind of a gimmick, but his whole thing was being anti what NXT was at the time. NXT was WWE's in-house indie promotion, and he was the guy that was like superstar, was like anti-indie, basically to the point where he was wrestling smaller guys, making fun of them for being smaller, telling them to go back to the gymnasiums and the bingo halls and doing all that shit. But other than I'm the guy that doesn't like indie guys, there wasn't much of a gimmick to it. And then they brought him to the main roster, and he was the commissioner, and then he got blamed for the ratings on TV, which was crap, and then he was poor, and then he was Happy Corbin, and then he was the king, and whatever. Just let Baron Corbin be Baron Corbin. And he hasn't done anything in the build to this to make him a babyface. It's just people thinking and believing that, like, the actual guy behind all those shitty gimmicks could be really good. And he was really good in this, and he stood his ground, and he didn't do any cowardly heel shit. I do love this, because this was supposed to be the platform for this big golden boy Gable Steveson, and he got booed out of the building. Oh yes, obviously, I'm not taking the piss out of Gable Steveson. The guy's obviously athletic as hell. He's got legitimate athletic accomplishments, I can speak, I swear, up the yin-yang. And obviously he got huge pops because a dude that big doing overhead suplexes looks amazing. I don't want to take that away from him, but this big coming out party for Gable Steveson was the coming out party for the Baron Corbin that we've been waiting so long for. I think this is fucking awesome. I really, really, really do. I'm going to put it somewhere in the title. I'm going to put, like, you know, these people won these titles and Baron Corbin is over. Let's see how I type that up, because I haven't figured it out yet. But this was really cool. And the fact that it ended in a sort of a non-finish, a double count out, and it got booed, meant people wanted to see more. When they started brawling and people started chanting, let them fight, it kind of sounds like the crowd wanted to, what? Say it again? Let them fight, which is absolutely cool. This, although people are going to find all kinds of ways to get around it and blah, 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 because there's still this narrative, even tonight, even while I'm watching the show, I'm scrolling X, because Twitter's not a thing anymore. I'm scrolling X while I watch the show, and there's people during the show talking about how Baron Corbin's a white supremacist and people only cheer him because all wrestling fans are big, terrible, horrible white supremacists, which is mind-boggling. Yeah, people need to go out. I don't know whether to say touch grass or check your meds, or both. That's all I've got. This was awesome. This was more than I expected from this match, and I went into the show hoping that this was going to be the best match of the night. It wasn't. It was the best segment of the night. What do you want me to tell you? In the back, or sorry, we replay the match from Lyra Valkyria and Rhea Ripley from last week's episode of NXT that I thought should have been on this card. We interview Lyra Valkyria in the back and talk about what that match meant to her. JC Jane tries to attack her, and they have a hell of a brawl. Rhea Ripley walks by with Dominik Mysterio and basically said something smart-ass to the effect of, I was waiting to see that. Like, she's getting... It's continuing. She's a heel. She's definitely a heel. Rhea Ripley is a heel. She's the best thing in the heel group known as the Judgment Day. She's out there to help the heel champion, Dominik Mysterio, and yet she's got this weird sort of, like, tough love mentorship thing going on with Lyra Valkyria. It's very, very cool. I think it's a way of them acknowledging the fact that even though Rhea Ripley's playing a heel now, she's over as fuck with the crowd. They put up there was a poll on X. I gotta get used to saying X just because it's really funny, especially because we're talking about NXT right now. But they're like, oh, who do you want to see Rhea Ripley face next year at WrestleMania? And first of all, that means she's still going to be champion at next year's WrestleMania, which is awesome. And it's like, oh, who do you want to see her face, Becky Lynch or Bianca Belair? Now, first of all, they're going to have to move a whole lot of papers around the board to make the match with Bianca Belair happen because they're on separate brands right now. Becky Lynch is a far bigger star. I want to see Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. I don't know if I've made that perfectly clear over the past couple of months, but I am sort of reserved to the fact that political politics is going to identity politics, there we go, political politics is a bit redundant, is going to rear its ugly head, and we're going to get Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley, and Rhea Ripley's going to be the latest victim of the steamroller. Let's just, but hey, no more Jade Cargill, no more Sasha Banks, no more Naomi, even though Naomi kind of buried Deonna Purrazzo. Take our wins where we can get them. Moving swiftly on. Wes Lee versus Mustafa Ali versus Dominik Mysterio for the North American Championship. This was a very, very cool match between two guys that aren't champion, and it also happened to have the champion in it as well. Lee and Ali basically have this story where they're fighting in the early going over who gets to beat up Dom, and then Dom sort of scarpers to the outside, and the two of them have a hell of a match. Dom gets involved a little bit, leaves again. The two of them have a hell of a match. There's a point where Ripley pulls Dom out, and Lee and Ali come from either side, and Dom escapes by going into the ring, which is sort of a paradox. There's a really contrived spot in the middle of the match where both Dominik Mysterio and Wes Lee are sort of leaning out of the ring, sort of like on the apron area, and Mustafa Ali goes to the top rope to hit a 450 onto the apron. They both move. He hits the apron what looked like very, very hard, and it didn't look like it was fun, to be fair. On the outside, there is a stare down between Wes Lee and Rhea Ripley after Wes Lee flips over Rhea Ripley to hit Dominik Mysterio with a dive, and Rhea Ripley, because it's a triple threat match, which means no disqualification, hits a riptide on Wes Lee through the table, which made me smile. I did say on X, though, WWE is seriously causing a problem when it comes to Rhea Ripley, because she keeps presenting us with these possible matches with dudes that are awesome, and they need to stop doing it unless they're going to start giving us those matches. Because I would love to see Rhea Ripley beat the shit out of Wes Lee. I think that would be amazing. I think Rhea Ripley versus Kevin Owens would be a lot of fun. I think Rhea Ripley versus Seth Rollins would be fantastic. What's his name? Sami Zayn would also be another good one. I think she stepped up to Solo Sikoa at one point when you had that brief period of like Judgment Day versus Bloodline stuff going on, and every time they all stared each other down, they were the last two in the line, so it was always Rhea Ripley staring down Solo Sikoa. So give me a bit of that, but WWE have this really cool way, and it makes Rhea look strong because she's in there with the boys, she's mixing it up with the boys, she's chucking around the boys. I want to see some of these matches, and we're not going to get that in WWE. That's pretty much, when you look at the three companies, WWE, including NXT, along with AEW and Impact. It's really the only card I can hand to Impact consistently, is that they do present intergender matches that are not just, oh look, we've got a guy and a girl fighting, let's make sure the girl wins so that we don't get in trouble. They do just proper, like, these are two competitors and they're competing and we're actually going to see who wins. It's not like when we make, you know, Reggie or Baron Corbin or James Ellsworth be the punching bag for a particular agenda and just have them have their asses handed to them by somebody that definitely doesn't need it, like Trasha Skanks. Moving swiftly on. 450 by Ali onto Wesley. Rhea Ripley pulls out Ali. Frog splash by Dom, and Dom gets the win. He retains the title. They escape all happily and run away. I'm sorry. First of all, in the match, if you put all the people involved in this match in the match, Rhea Ripley's bigger than all of them. But Rhea Ripley and Dominic, if this was a tag team match, are bigger than their two opponents, and they're the ones running away. Makes me happy, makes me smile. This was all good. Like I say, Rhea Ripley is probably the biggest star on this show, and she didn't have a match. This is why you should have done the Lyra Valkyria match on this card instead of last week on NXT. But that's just my opinion. Judgment Day equal ratings. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Tiffany Stratton versus Thea Hale. And there's not a lot to say about this. Tiffany Stratton versus Thea Hale. Thea Hale coming out with all the paraphernalia of Chase U and Duke Hudson, and Duke Hudson's got his trophy, so we've had a lot of trophies tonight. Duke Hudson's out there in his Letterman sweater, and he's got his papers and blah, 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 and there's the whole, like, college gimmick thing. Tiffany Stratton came out dressed as Barbie, because of course she did. There's two movies that came out last weekend, and I didn't really have an interest in either of them, and it's both halves of the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Now, Oppenheimer, I did end up seeing because a friend of mine wanted to see it. It's really good. It's not my thing. I'm not a historical movies type of guy. If you want to have a really, really short conversation with me, ask me what I think of Titanic. But objectively, the cast is amazing, Nolan's amazing, the movie is amazing, even though it's like 3 hours and 10, so if you are going, don't drink anything. Somebody gave me a brief plot synopsis of Barbie, and if I wasn't already saying that that movie can go fuck itself, that movie can definitely go fuck itself. Now, in this context, Tiffany Stratton coming out dressed as, like, NXT Barbie was awesome. It fits her character, you know, she is playing up to the stereotype of what people thought of women's wrestling. Oh, WWE just hires a bunch of hot blondes and that's all they care about because it's run by men and men are terrible and men are perverts and whatever, except Tiffany Stratton is a Barbie doll that can actually wrestle, so fuck off, and also Trish Stratus is a thing. I just have in my notes Tiffany Stratton is Barbie because of course she is. Really, really basic match. Oh, I should say this is for the Women's Championship and it's a submissions match as well. The fact that it's a submission match brought it down to the mat a little bit more, made it a little bit more basic, but it made it really basic in a way that made it stick out from the rest of the matches on the card. It's not super high-flying gymnastics like the last match was. It's not a hardcore match like Roxanne Perez had done. It's not a tag team match, obviously, because it's for a singles title. It had a very unique place on the card, and that works. Because it's grounded, and because there's a little bit of simplicity to it, because you're only going for submissions, because you're not going for a pinfall, the idea of using an explosive, hard-hitting finisher sort of goes out the window. But then it turned into this different story of, I'm still going to hit you with an explosive maneuver. I'm just going to hit you with an explosive maneuver that will get me to a submission. So, back to back, we have Thea Hale hitting a top rope exploder suplex and rolling it into the Kimura that she's been using. Because both of them have had their backs worked on, she manages to get her way to the ropes. She doesn't get a rope break because, as we were told on commentary, it was a no disqualification match, but she did use the ropes for leverage to get out of the hold. At which time, Tiffany Stratton hits the... I didn't know they were calling it this, so obviously I haven't been paying attention. Christopher Daniels had the BME, the best moonsault ever. She has the PME. She has the prettiest moonsault ever. Hits the prettiest moonsault ever to the small of the back of Thea Hale, and then puts her in a Boston Crab. And then, if the Boston Crab wasn't enough, she then turned it into a single leg crab, with the addition of a knee on the back that from a certain perspective looked like a knee on the neck and made a whole bunch of people on X get political all over again. Thea Hale sells the pain incredibly. It goes on for what felt like an agonizing amount of time. It was probably like less than 20 seconds or so, but the way she sold it made it seem much, much, much longer until eventually Mr. Chase on the outside, racked with, oh my god, what am I going to do, what am I going to do, eventually throws in the towel. So Tiffany Stratton, who's awesome, who could... I said this on the preview, I'm pulling back on it a little bit. Maybe I'm a little bit more 50-50 on it, but she could make a move to the main roster. Thea Hale, again, they said on commentary, is still, I didn't know this, I thought the math was a lot closer, she's still fighting for the distinction of being the youngest NXT Women's Champion ever. She didn't win that tonight, but we come out of it, and I guarantee the first line of dialogue on NXT this week is going to be, she never quit, she never tapped out, she was never pinned, obviously, because there's no pins in the match. She didn't lose, somebody else came in and saved her, so that's going to be how they try to make her look better in a losing effort. But again, much like Baron Corbin was super over in a match that had no ending, this is not going to hurt Thea Hale at all. This is, if anything, going to get her over in defeat, because we have sympathy, we have empathy. She's I'm going to repeat everything I said in the preview, but she's the character that gets you on board with her. If you win, if she wins, you win with her. If she loses, you lose with her. And people are still going to want her to win going forward. If it wasn't for Thea Hale, the whole Chase U thing wouldn't work, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be very, very wrong. But I don't think the Chase U thing, if it was just like Mr. Chase yelling at all the students and then the whole like him teaming up with Duke Hudson thing, I don't think we would care nearly as much. So Thea Hale deserves a lot of credit for that. And Tiffany Stratton, although this was about Thea Hale passing or failing, this is about Thea Hale winning the title or losing. Tiffany Stratton is the champion. She's the kind of champion that you need for a heartfelt babyface like Thea Hale, so shout out to her as well. And shout out to her for being the only Barbie that I will tolerate or talk about. We did a little bit of house cleaning on commentary. They announced that the next pay-per-view is going to be NXT No Mercy, so they're bringing back the No Mercy property. It's going to be on Saturday, September 30th. Now, this does give me an opportunity to talk about something, because there's a lot of talk recently, especially with the international shows, about how we're scheduling pay-per-views. The idea that Sunday night is pay-per-view night is kind of out the window unless you're an AEW fan, because they have Collision, so obviously they're going to do their pay-per-views on Sunday. But it used to be pay-per-views were always on Sunday, unless there was some wild exception like Taboo Tuesday or something back in the day. And then the packages became, for the Big Four, it was WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. They all had a takeover. The takeover was on Saturday night. Saturday night was the sort of the precursor to the Sunday pay-per-view. Even with two-night WrestleMania, the NXT show was on Saturday afternoons. WWE moving their pay-per-views as a whole to Saturday has been a really cool thing, and I never thought I would like it as much as I do, but I do. But what it's meant is now the proper NXT PLEs get bumped to Sunday a lot of the time, because there is still that lingering idea that Sunday is pay-per-view night. If we can get rid of that, I know WrestleMania is the exception because it's two nights and they're never going to do Friday, Saturday, because there's SmackDown and because there's the Hall of Fame and because there's all that stuff. WrestleMania can be the exception. WrestleMania is the exception to pretty much everything. Let's just do all of our pay-per-views on Saturday. Can we just do that? For me, it's a chance to sort of sit on the results for a night and, maybe record the next day, maybe put some better thoughts together. These are my thoughts. The show literally ended about 40 minutes ago, and I'm talking to you guys now, and you guys are going to get this tomorrow morning. But it lets it ruminate, and it gives whatever happens on the pay-per-view, especially for WWE. I mean, now NXT's on Tuesday, it's different, right? But WWE's next show is Monday night. It gives you a little bit of time to let the results of a pay-per-view sink in before we get to Monday. So this being on a Sunday, and this next one being announced for a Saturday, and my immediate feeling of, okay, good. made me realize that I really do like shit moving to Saturday. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, everybody's situation is different. Everybody's work situation is different. Everybody's school situation is different. If you're not like me, if you're not recording anything like this, on any given night, you can watch the pay-per-view and go to bed. Maybe you don't care. Tell me. Would you care? Impact does a lot of Friday pay-per-views, which, I mean, the highest rated wrestling show of the week right now is SmackDown and Impact. While it's awesome sometimes, does struggle to get a viewership. So I don't know how that Friday night time slot for pay-per-views is working for them. It's a little bit weird. I don't know. Would you guys care if they threw a pay-per-view on a random Wednesday? Would you care? Are you with me? Do you like the Saturdays? Do you want it to go back to the old school way of it being Sunday? I'd like to know. Start a conversation down in the box below. In the back, Dominik Mysterio and Rhea Ripley are celebrating. They come face to face with Dragon Lee. They make fun of him. They call him one more Rey Mysterio wannabe. Dragon Lee obviously shows a lot of respect for Rey Mysterio. Dominik punks him out. He says, I didn't need to be a wannabe of my deadbeat dad. I'm version 1 of myself, pretty much. And when he said version 1, I immediately thought of like old school Matt Hardy, which is not great. And sort of Dragon Lee gives him the dead eyes and they walk away. So I'm assuming we're going to get Dominik versus Dragon Lee this week on NXT, which doesn't hurt my feelings. I really like Dragon Lee. When the Judgment Day in NXT experiment is over and they do take that title off Dom, Dragon Lee isn't a bad contender for that at all. Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov for the NXT Championship. The story of this was kind of weird in the way that it rolled out because, as I said, again, in the preview, you've got Ilya, who's the grounded, hard-hitting, grappling, put a fist in your face guy, whereas Carmelo's not a spot monkey by any stretch of the imagination. He's not one of the Young Bucks, for example. But I'm gonna get shit for that. Aren't I? Oh yeah. I do like. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention in the triple threat match for the North American Championship: Wes Lee and Mustafa Ali did a locomotion of double suplexes on Dominik that I said on X was way better than the Young Bucks could do, because I'm an asshole, but also sometimes being an asshole just means you told the truth. So the story of this match, especially in the early going, is Ilya Dragunov tries to ground the more gymnastic style of Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes responds by saying, okay, you want to wrestle? I can wrestle too. Ilya Dragunov, in that sort of environment, he wins the grappling game and he strikes like crazy and he cuts off every rally that Carmelo has. Carmelo is awesome at going into a match really, really confident and almost overconfident, and then selling the, oh shit, I didn't prepare for this, in his face, which is really, really good. Anyways, Ilya cuts off every time he tries to rally. Series of kicks to the head and a tornado something by Carmelo Hayes. It started off as a head scissor and I think it ended as a DDT, but it was impactful. When you hear them on commentary say, oh, and there's Carmelo, and that was impactful, it means they didn't know what the hell it was supposed to be, which is absolutely fine. He goes for the leg drop, which Ilya turns into a powerbomb in midair, which is absolutely fine. They trade a bunch of finishers. They counter a bunch of finishers. Trick Williams on the outside grabs the belt and starts shouting at Carmelo, this is what you're fighting for. This is the, it's the fourth quarter. It's the bottom of the ninth. Are you a champ? Are you a chump? Are you a champion or are you a fraud? He's really hyping up his buddy. Mello ends up on the outside once again, goes for the Torpedo Moscow, and Mello gets out of the way and Trick gets hit with the torpedo. And I didn't see it on the replay, but apparently Ilya also hit the table on his way down. Back in the ring, Mello hits the Mello don't miss, the shoot but don't score, whatever the hell it's, I don't know what it's called. The nothing but net. There we go. Thank you, brain. He does get the win. There's nothing that happens afterwards either. I thought Trick was going to come in and jump Ilya. That didn't happen. He just sits in the corner all pissed off, selling defeat and whatever. And Carmelo, celebratory in the ring, but once again, like, selling on his face, like, holy fuck, this might not have happened type of idea. So, the show as a whole, I don't know what to say, because I had fun. It wasn't a perfect show by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you could have had that 4-on-4 match at the beginning not be on the show, and we could have just, like, skipped the kickoff and gone right to the show. The Cody stuff was appropriate, but, again, my feelings are what they are. Tony D and Stacks, I wish I hadn't gone into this pay-per-view knowing that that was going to happen. Like, I wish it hadn't been as predictable, because I think I would have celebrated it more. Perez and Davenport was a pretty cool plunder brawl. Corbin and Stevenson. Baron Corbin is over. That is the success story of this pay-per-view. I don't know what you want me to tell you. The Rhea Ripley stuff still is intriguing to me. The stuff with Lyra Valkyria, we'll see how that goes. Dominik Mysterio escapes with his title by the skin of his teeth, because of course he does. Tiffany Stratton retains her title, but Thea Hale technically didn't lose, and Tiffany Stratton is Barbie, because of course she is. We've already got our next pay-per-view to look forward to. We've already got a decent match teased for this week's episode of NXT between Dominic and Dragon Lee. Carmelo and Dragunov gave us the match that we wanted. Other than if you want to make the argument of Carmelo Hayes should go to the main roster. Now, they've teased that Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams are going to be part of that weird group with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, and I'm sure they're going to sell a lot of hoodies. It's fine. But take that aside and assume that Carmelo Hayes is staying in NXT. He was never going to lose this match. If he's staying in NXT, he's going to still be the champion. The best thing that Ilya Dragunov could have had in this match was make a hell of a showing of himself. And he did. He did make a hell of a showing of himself. And like I say, that's about 75% him, 25% Carmelo Hayes selling that he's getting the shit kicked out of him, pretty much. Really, really good. Overall, could have done without a non-finish and a throwing in the towel in the same night. I know that that's just like weird nitpicky wrestling math, but I mean, I'm a weird nitpicky wrestling guy with a podcast, so what do you want me to say? I had a lot of fun with this. Now, if you didn't see my Collision review, you'll know that there is no episode of WWE last week this week, because I did Collision, I did this, I did the preview for this, and there won't be one next week either, because going into next weekend I will be previewing SummerSlam. I don't know whether you'll get a review like this for SummerSlam. I don't know how the rest of my weekend is going to work out, but the weekend after that, we will be back to programming as normal, hopefully, with an episode of WWE last week. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you want me to do more reviews like this, because normally I just do the previews and do a little skim sort of the week after. So if you've enjoyed this, I hope you like it, share it, put it up on X, throw a comment down in the comment section below. But for now, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.